Welcome back. There is a new development in the race for San Francisco's next district attorney. Former police commissioner John Hamasaki is likely throwing his hat into the race. Our media partners at the San Francisco Standard just published an article on this, and it explores whether Hamasaki has a real shot and what this could mean for interim DA Brooke Jenkins. Joining us live now is the Standard senior reporter Josh Koehn. Josh, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm great. First, let's talk about this. Hamasaki pulled papers with the Department of Elections. This does not mean he's a formal candidate. Is that right? And what does it take for him to become one then?
Absolutely. So right now, John Hamasaki has done the initial steps to become a candidate for district attorney. He'll have to file some paperwork, nomination forms that include signatures, and he'll have to pay a filing fee that's about almost $6,000, and all of that has to be done before 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Okay, so we'll know tomorrow by 5 p.m. for sure.
That's right. We better have an answer by then, I hope.
Okay, let's talk about Hamasaki. What is he best known for? Give us some background.
Yeah, so John's best known for his role as a police commissioner. He served a term from 2018 through the spring of this year. During that time, he was a champion for reforming the police department, and at times pretty combative with the police chief, Bill Scott, calling for deeper looks into excessive force, also calling for a agreement between the DA's office and police on how they handle investigations on police shootings and other critical incidents. There was a real big brouhaha in February in which the chief had threatened to pull out of an agreement because of a dispute with the former DA, Chase Boudin, and John Hamasaki and police chief Bill Scott got into a lot of finger pointing and almost shouting at each other during a police commission meeting.
And can you give us some comparisons for Hamasaki and Chase Boudin, and then our current DA Jenkins? Give us some of their contrasts, I guess, on some of the bigger issues.
Absolutely. So Brooke Jenkins, the current district attorney, was a former homicide prosecutor under Boudin. She and Boudin had their disputes. She decided to quit the office, and shortly after that became part of the recall effort. She was a volunteer spokesperson. But we just reported this week, actually, that DA Brooke Jenkins, during that time, was also receiving a salary for a nonprofit that has been considered deeply connected to the recall effort. John Hamasaki told us in our report today that this story that we published just 2 days ago was a big motivating factor in running. He's not necessarily exactly a clone of Chase Boudin, but they share very similar policies and outlooks on how the criminal justice system should work. And so when we asked Chase Boudin, who are you going to be supporting? He said he hasn't endorsed anyone in this race, but he would be open to receiving a call and consider it if John Hamasaki asked for that blessing. And so right now you have to definitely consider DA Brooke Jenkins on one side. While she's talked about being compassionate in reforming the criminal justice system, she's got a clear mandate to try and clean up the streets and hold people accountable. So she will be considered a little bit tougher on crime, whereas John Hamasaki would be closer to the way Chase Boudin was running the office.
And you just mentioned that Hamasaki is a known supporter of Chase Boudin, who was just recalled. Would that affiliation impact how voters see him, do you think?
Well, absolutely. Chase Boudin was recalled with 55% of voters supporting the recall. 45% were against it. And it's not necessarily clear if those are just all people who would support Boudin's role as the DA, or if there were some people that were just more opposed to the process of the recall and feeling like if you don't do anything truly criminal, you should be allowed to serve out your term. I think when we look at what we could expect from someone like John Hamasaki, if he were to be elected district attorney, it would very much be more in line with the way that Chase Boudin was doing things.
And are there any other real contenders in the race that we should be talking about while we have you here?
Absolutely. So there's 4 candidates total. Three, I should say, because John Hamasaki still needs to get that paperwork in. But assuming that he gets in, there would be 4 total. And a third candidate, Joe Alioto Veronese, whose grandfather was Mayor Joe Alioto, his mother Angela Alioto was the supervisor. He has positioned himself, is going to position himself somewhere in the middle of Brooke Jenkins and John Hamasaki if he intends to run. And because of the ranked choice voting system in San Francisco, which rewards people if they were to be a second place choice, that could actually position him somewhat as a spoiler, if not a contender, depending on how things shake out.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the article. You have it right there on your homepage. Anything else you want the people to know about Hamasaki and what this means for the DA's race come November? I mean, this has already kind of been a tumultuous position. Anything else that you want to add?
Absolutely. Well, this is going to be the fourth election in San Francisco this year. So voter fatigue is very real. Reporter fatigue, we don't acknowledge it. We'll just keep going. But I think the big thing is that when you look at John Hamasaki's record, yes, there's this time as a police commissioner, but it's also the statements you make as an individual, as a private citizen. And he's been very prolific on Twitter, and you could say quite aggressive at moments in the way that he is criticized people. And those are the kind of comments that actually will be very much vetted if you become a political candidate. I think we've seen that over time where old tweets resurface and people all of a sudden are under a microscope they might not have been in a lower role, such as a commissioner.
Well, if anybody wants, they can read the article. It's right there on your homepage right now. Thank you, Josh, so much for making time to talk about us with this today.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You too.